Hi, I'm Stephanie, and welcome back. This post is all about prototyping with the help of AI. Most of us are using AI on a daily basis now to write our scripts and to help us with instructional design. And more so, we're using it to do vibe coding. The Rise code block library that I shared previously is a great example of using vibe coding to create snippets that can easily be dropped into Rise as responsive interactions. Currently, Claude is excelling at coding, and this is very helpful for us e-learning developers, particularly when it comes to prototyping interactions. If you have Claude explain something, you're likely going to see a text-based response back. But if you say, "Show me how X works," it's likely to create an interactive widget instead. It's that widget that you can literally copy, paste, and drop into Rise. There's a few steps to clean the code up and make it Rise compliant, but it's really that simple. So if you're a storyline person and you're creating basic interactions, like a slider with a variable that changes an outcome, you might consider doing that with AI instead. It'll shave hours off of your production time. So with that, let's get started. So the phrasing with Claude matters. Here's an example. If I say, "What is compound interest?" I'm likely going to see a text-based response. But if I instead say, "Show me how compound interest works," I'll probably see an interactive widget with controls like sliders and inputs. What's interesting is this interactivity is happening in a normal chat message, not a coding environment. The sweet spot for Claude visualizations is anything with cause and effect. A slider that changes an outcome, a toggle that shows a consequence, or a process where the learner can poke around and see what happens. So if you've been building these basic interactions in Storyline, you don't necessarily have to anymore. And once you're happy with what Claude built, you stay in the same chat. And you ask Claude to convert it using the Rise build system intake prompt, so it'll become Rise compatible. Here's how this is done. If you don't have a project set up in Claude or the AI you're using, then you'll attach the intake and master prompts to the chat. You can use this prompt to start the process of converting the visualization into a Rise code snippet. Claude will read the prompts and begin the conversation with step 0 of the intake prompt, which asks how ready the prototype is. Next, it confirms if everything in the prototype is the way you want it. In this case, it is. Now it asks about the continue block in Rise and if that gate is needed. In this case, it's not. I didn't provide theme details, so it's just picking up on the defaults in the master prompt, which is fine. Step 6 checks its understanding and presents any decision points it needs my input on. This moment matters to ensure you get the results you expect. Then it goes off and builds the Rise version of the visualization. You can test it here in the Claude canvas, but I'm not going to do that. Instead, I'll head over to Rise and test it on multiple device previews there. Everything is working, so I can wrap up the coding. This produces a customization guide that'll help me edit the code later on, and a few alternative use ideas. If it wasn't working as expected, I'd continue the conversation here in the same chat and focus on what to fix or adjust until I was happy with the result. The reason same chat matters is that Claude already knows exactly what it built: the sliders, the calculations, and the layout. If you were to describe this interaction in a new chat, Claude will make an educated guess, but staying in the same chat, it'll convert it precisely. Let me show you how to build a code snippet from a working prototype. And here's the prototype. It's more visually involved than the typical snippet, so I used Claude Design first to put this working prototype together. This is like other app coding AI tools such as Lovable and Bolt. It produces fully functional and aesthetically pleasing prototypes, better suited to design-led snippets like this one than what you'd typically see from a chat conversation. If I had done this in the chat environment, it would produce something like this. This is decent enough, but not nearly as polished as I'm aiming for. So let's use this prototype to start a new code snippet. We'll call up the intake prompt as usual. Very little of the Claude Design packaging will translate to Rise, but the design and behavior of the prototype will show Claude what I'm looking for visually and functionally. And after answering questions from the intake prompt, I'm ready to test and adjust if needed. The result is more aligned with my expectations than I would have gotten if I hadn't have prototyped first. The bonus is, it's now responsive and fully accessible, and I can use it in Storyline, in Rise, on a web page, or standalone. The boundary here are more complex interactions, like branching scenarios that go deep with multiple levels in logic. Though it might take longer in Storyline, is still a solid choice. The development environment is familiar and it can be easier to edit and maintain. But if what you need is a visual that responds to input, a slider, a toggle, a risk meter, Vibe coding gets you there in minutes instead of hours. The Rise Code block system and the ready-to-use code block library are linked below. Grab them. Try building a new snippet using a prototype and let me know how it goes. So that's it for now. We'll see you in the next post.